guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial here, and today in this video, a bit of a different one. I thought we'd take a look at my entire skate collection. Now before we jump in, I wanted to mention that these are skates that I've either bought or been sent, of course, as you guys know, and I've decided to keep past reviewing them. The ones that I've bought are obviously way before I was kind of like really involved in making YouTube videos, and I've kept them all this time. These aren't skates that I've reviewed and then kind of brushed aside and then left, because there is a bunch more skates inside the Hockey Tutorial office, which is where I'm standing right now. Those particular skates might only be here for the sole intention of me using them to be able to familiarize myself with the product, to be able to give you guys really in-depth reviews about what the performance is like, what the fit is like, what they look like, what's new, what's been upgraded. Those aren't always skates that I hold on to. After I've reviewed a pair of skates, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to keep them. So these are the ones that I've actually paid for myself, or that I've been sent and decided to keep as my dailies. They've been in my equipment bag. I've used for scrimmages, games, training, pond hockey, all of that good stuff. And I actually consider them to be my pair of skates. That's what you can see on the table behind me. But something I'm going to mention is, I think since stepping out onto the ice, because as you guys know, I stepped onto the ice as an adult, or I guess a late teenager. So the first pair of skates that I ever owned are actually on the table behind me, which are a pair of CCM E8s. Those were released a very long time ago, but I still own them to this day. But I think I'm missing about 3 or 4 pairs from the collection of skates that I've ever owned, which was a pair of Mission Fuel 85s, which were my second pair of skates. I also know that I'm definitely missing 2 pairs of Ribcore pumps, which are in black and also white. I had a viral video that was released some time ago called How to Ice Skate. If you Google that, it's the first video that comes up, and I was wearing the Ribcore white Ks in that video there. And aside from that, it's also going to be the infamous Eastern Mako skates. Those are the ones that I know that I don't have on that table. They're either at my dad's house in Nairobi in Kenya, or somewhere in my mum's house, lost in all of the boxes that I've left over there. No idea where they are, but I know that they are somewhere, because I typically never sell the skates that I've owned. I always keep them. I don't know why, but I just always decided to keep them. And as a side note, before we jump into this video, a lot of you that watch our videos aren't subscribed, so please consider subscribing to the channel, because it shows us a lot of support. It allows us to make these videos. But more importantly, before we jump in, please consider giving the video a thumbs up, because it just brings more eyes to the channel. It helps that YouTube algorithm show more people our videos, so please consider giving it a thumbs up before we jump in, and let's get into the video. Here we are. This is probably the fullest the review table has ever looked, but let's get into it. So the first ones I'm going to kick off with, I think naturally, is going to be the first ever pair of skates that I used, which are these guys over here, the CCM E8s. Now these particular skates over here, I actually bought these myself. This was before I even made YouTube videos. There was no content of mine online. I got these because I was learning how to skate. This is the skates that I learned how to hockey stop in, how to go backwards. These were my first ever pair of skates, and of course, because they're sentimental, I was never able to get rid of them. I thought I'd hold on to them for God knows what reason, but these are the first pair of skates I ever used. I mean, the tendon guard is like non-existent. Considering it's my first pair of skates, they're actually in pretty good condition, considering how old they are. I think I first started skating when I was probably somewhere around the region of 14 or 15. That's when I started to take it quite seriously and got my own pair of skates. Maybe I was a little bit older, I can't remember exactly, but this is what I was working with. Who knew that I'd be starting off with CCM and then eventually working with CCM, so that was really cool. From there, this is where we'd have probably gone on to the Ribcore skates that I had, or actually it would have been the Mission Fuel skates next, which I'm not sure where those are, but I'm going to try and find them. And then it would have been the Ribcores, and then from there it would have been onto the MLX skates, which I have over here. Now these particular skates here, if you're unfamiliar with who MLX are, this was started by a guy called Dave Cruikshank, and also a guy that you probably know the name of, some of you, which is Scott Van Horn, who's responsible for the true skates that we know today. But this is where it started. It had a replaceable tendon guard, which was flexible, which I really liked with these skates here. The guys behind this, Dave Cruikshank, actually partnered up with Eastern and created the Eastern Mako skate, which was essentially a much more refined version of the MLX skate over here, in my opinion. You can see it has the exposed carbon fiber here, which we see in the true skates, or previously called VH. These were a good pair of skates. It was the first monocroc construction skate that I'd ever seen, and I think it was the first ever pair to be released publicly, which was pretty sick. You can see the riveting system over here is very different to what we typically see. It's just some bolts. It was a pretty Frankenstein looking skate, but I really like the performance of these boots. So these were probably, I don't know, maybe my 4th or 5th pair of hockey skates that I ever owned. So again, sentimental, could never get rid of them. Now moving from here, we've got the VH skates over here, which as you guys now know today is the True skates. This was possibly I think my third pair of VH skates that had the Kenyan flag colors on the back of the tendon support over there, which I really liked, and my number just on the back of the heel there. These were quite heavily used. You can see the riveting system is much more typical to what you see today. But aside from that, I like them. It had a tuck holder on it with an LS2 blade because it had the trigger, nice and easy to switch your blade out. Good pair of skates, very stiff, very narrow fitting around the forefoot and the heel. But I really enjoyed these. Really enjoyed these skates. So much so that I got multiple pairs. Like I said, this was my third or fourth pair. My first pair I actually converted over to inline, which you can see just over here. So these I fitted with the Mars blade holder that you can see just over here. So after I used them on the ice and I was deciding what to do with them, if I should, retire them, that's roughly when Mars blades started to come out. So I had the Mars blade chassis mounted onto these by the good guys at Puck Stop. So if you guys are watching, big thank you for doing this for me. And that's what I did with these. And that's why I've still got them, because these are actually the only pair of inlines that I've got. So I actually still do use these today. So moving from there, I picked up an additional pair of the VH skates, which are just over here. Now with these particular VH skates, this was just before True acquired VH, and these became the True skates that we know today. So you can see like around the toe cap, this looks very similar to what we've seen in the past with True skates, but this was probably one of the most refined versions of the VH skate before True took it on. It looks very different now. They've made a lot more refinements to it. They've done a lot more refinement to the skate, but this was another pair that I picked up. I only used these probably for maybe a month or two, not really for a lot of intense hockey, more for pond hockey, but I really did enjoy using these the skates over here. Now, trying to keep in time with the direction that I went with my skates, after I kind of stopped using the VH, that's when I kind of moved on to the Jetspeed range from CCM. Prior to that, it would have been the Crazy Lights, which I've just remembered is another pair of skates that I had that I no longer have today with me. Again, not sure where they went, but I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a fan of the Crazy Lights. In terms of all of the skates that CCM's made that I've used over the years, the Crazy Lights were probably the worst pair of skates that I've ever used to date. So that's probably the reason I didn't hold on to them. That's why I don't know where they are. But from the Crazy Lights, it went on to the first Jetspeed skates, which are these ones over here. These were quite heavily used, but again, I play rec hockey, so it's nothing too serious. They're not too battered up. But these were the first pair of Jetspeed skates that I ever used. These weren't one piece, these were still two piece, but I really did enjoy these skates. They fit so much better and the performance was uncomparable to what I had seen with the previous generation, which was the Crazy Lights. So these were very good skates. And then from there, I've always been a really big fan of Jetspeeds, moved on to the FT1s, which were CCM's one-piece boot construction over here. Again, really enjoyed these. It was just a much more refined version of what I saw with the original Jetspeed skates. So of course I got on with them very well. And then from the FT1s, it went on to the FT2s. And then instead of moving straight onto the FT4s, I actually stuck with the FT490 for some time, which are the model just below the top spec skate. And that was for the reason of, I just kind of figured out that over time, I preferred to have a skate that was a little bit more forgiving, a bit softer construction. I didn't like it to be too stiff. And I used these for quite a long time. I actually had two pairs of FT490s because I really heavily used the first pair and got another pair of them, stuck with these skates for quite some time. I really did enjoy these. If I had to pick between the FT2s and the FT490s, I'd actually stick with the FT490. For my style of playing and my level of play, this works just fine. And of course, moving from there on to, we're kind of out of sync in the order of which skates I had at what time, because around the same time as picking up the new Jetspeed range, of course, that's when we saw the first, or the reiteration of the CCM Tax skates, which was these guys over here. Now this is the actual two-piece construction Tax, not the one-piece, which was the Super Tax. But again, I had a good time in these skates. These weren't anywhere near as stiff as the Super Tax top spec skates that we get today, and it's why I actually used these. Whereas things like the AS3 Pros, although I did use them for a while, I found that it's a little bit too stiff for the way that I play and I prefer a softer construction. So the original Tax skates, I really like these, or the original Tax skates from my generation, I really like these ones. From there, of course, it moved up to the Super Tax, which was the one-piece boot frame that we saw from CCM. These were a pretty big milestone for CCM and for myself as well. I really enjoyed the performance of these skates. I think the only thing I didn't really like was the fact that the holder had those bolts. As you guys know, they don't do that anymore. But again, these were some skates that I really had a good time in, so I held on to them. And then from there, of course, it moved on to the AS1s, which are over here, which are just a much more refined version of the original Super Tax skates that we saw there. The one-piece boot frame was much more refined here. It didn't have that massive plastic lip thing at the bottom. They looked a lot cleaner. They just looked a lot more refined. And this is when we started to see the SB Black Blade from CCM as well. These didn't get, again, too heavily used. I was using these predominantly for training sessions, for pond hockey, so not too much intense use with these particular skates over here. Hence why they don't look like they're too battered up at all. And then after the AS1s, of course, it moves on to the AS3 Pros. Like I said, these were incredibly stiff skates. I really did like these skates. I loved the excess tongue, so you could replace the tongue on them. But the stiffness of these was a bit too much, a bit too intense for me, so that's why I changed up the skates that I was using. But again, no complaints with these skates aside from them being a bit too stiff for my style of play, but I really enjoyed them. And that brings us on to the Ribcore range of skates. I went with I had 70Ks, which was the first time I'd used a Ribcore skate and it didn't have the pump. I was kind of skeptical because I really didn't see why they removed the pump, but then after actually using these skates, you realize that the way that they adapted the padding inside here, you didn't miss the pump. It still gave you the same sort of feel and sensation. If anything, the fit and comfort was better. And of course, I'm sure the skate was also significantly lighter because you remove all of those materials from the skate for the pump, the air bladder, etc. So that was the first time I kind of used a skate that didn't have the pump where I was expecting it to have that. And then from there, it moved on to the 80Ks, which were a big upgrade because, again, the skate was just more refined, better use of materials. In this case, they also featured the brand new access holder, so we didn't have to worry about those bolts that really annoyed me. I really enjoyed using the 80Ks. These were my favorite set of skates for a really long time. I remember being in Sweden and trying these on for the first time with the guys at CCM Sweden, and I just couldn't believe how they felt on the ice. The only thing I was bummed about was the fact that it was a two-piece construction, but of course, as we know, they dropped the 100Ks and that cleared that up, but I really, really like these skates. Now, when we look at what I've got next, where you'd probably expect to see the 100Ks, I actually have the 90Ks. Now, these feature the custom blade from Blade Tech that you probably saw the video that I dropped just before this. I actually prefer these, although they're a two-piece construction rather than a one-piece. As I mentioned before, I actually like a slightly softer skate construction. The Ribcore range is already a soft construction in comparison to Jetspeed and also Super Tax. This is the most forgiving skate construction in terms of stiffness, but I just like them. I put them on. I really enjoyed the performance. I really enjoyed the feel. The level of stiffness that I got in the quarter package was exactly what I was looking for. It's kind of like the same story about why I used the FT490 instead of the FT2. Exactly the same story here. Absolutely love these skates. Now, just moving on to the other side of the table, of course, bouncing between ranges, we've got essentially all of the Jetspeed skates over here. These are the newest ones, the FT4 Pros. These are insane skates. I absolutely love the performance, the feel, and especially the look of these skates and the lightness. These are actually the closest in weight to the Hyperlights, which are currently the lightest skate that you can get in hockey. These were actually second. So in terms of lightness, these skates are sick. In terms of the fit, CCM's new fit is incredibly good. The reason I've not been in these as much as some of you might be expecting is purely because I was jumping between the Bauer skates, which I'm about to come to in a minute, and after kind of working my way through CCMs, I put on the Hyperlights, which I've never actually said in a video. I absolutely hated the way that those skates felt when I was skating. In terms of like crossing over backwards or striding backwards, the skates felt great, but the tongue kind of impeded on my skating way too much in my forward strides. The comfort was amazing, the look and feel of the skate was great, but just going forwards just didn't work for me in those skates. It wasn't comfortable. I was overthinking everything. I did try to break them in a bit longer. I spent a lot of time in them, but I just didn't get on with them. The FT4 Pros I got on really, really well with, but at the same time, I put on the Ultrasonics and got on really, really well with those as well. So in terms of my favorite skates right now, if you're wondering, it's FT4 Pro and Ultrasonics. In terms of what is in my hockey bag at the minute, it is the Ultrasonics from Bauer. I do see myself probably switching to the FT4s maybe in the next couple of weeks or so, but these two skates are the ones that I find myself bouncing between the most. Ultrasonic and FT4 Pro. They are very different skates in terms of the way that they're designed, like what type of skater they're aimed at, but for the way that I skate on the ice, these work really well, but at the minute I've just really been enjoying the Ultrasonics. I just wanted to clear that up because I've had so many questions about why I'm using Ultrasonics when a lot of you expected me to be in the FT4 Pros. I probably will be, but I'm absolutely loving those skates at the minute. But Absolutely nothing against these. These are actually pre-production because you'll notice that the eyelet at the top doesn't match the eyelets in the middle. When if you walk into a store, the eyelet at the top will be exactly the same as all of the ones down there. But I mentioned this in the video review, which I'll link down below. But yeah, these insane skates, out of every skate that I've ever used throughout my career of making these videos, the top two for me is Ultrasonic and FT4 Pro. In terms of which one is better than the other, I'll save that for maybe a video where I'll put these two up against each other. If you want to see that, comment down below. But yeah, that's my spiel about these two skates and which ones I'm using and why. Okay, that brings us down to the bottom of the table, which are essentially the last two skates that I've got here. They're both the exact same skate, Ultrasonics from Bauer's Supreme range. These are the ones that are actually in my equipment bag. These are the ones that I use every week when I'm playing hockey, when I'm making videos. I've been getting on really well. I had these skates with the Carbon Light Runner. If you want to see a video on why I've switched to the Pulse TIs, comment down below, because I did say I was going to make that video, but if enough of you do request it, I will make it. There's a very good reason as to why I did that. I'll go into detail about that in a separate video, but really love these skates. I am switching these to Blade Tech as of today. This is the last time that you'll be seeing these particular runners on these skates because I do prefer Blade Tech. I've mentioned that many, many times. I can't say enough good things about these skates. I tried both the Hyperlight and the Ultrasonic, and when manufacturers say one skate is made for a certain type of skating style and another one is made for a different one, it's not BS, guys. It's something that you do feel on the ice. I thought, looking at the Ultrasonics and the Hyperlights, I really wanted to use the Hyperlights, but I couldn't get on with them on the ice. It just didn't work. But the Ultrasonics have worked incredibly well, and it's why they're in my equipment bag today. These Ultrasonics, however, are probably the most significant ones that I've ever received or seen. I've done a whole video about these that I'll link down below, but it features Willie O'Ree, the first black NHL player. It's just an awesome looking skate. I've not actually used these. I can't bring myself to put them on the ice or even sharpen the blade, but I'd never be getting rid of these. I'd never be selling these. In fact, I think these are the only pair outside North America, which is insane to think that I have them. These are just purely sentimental, something that I have on the shelf in the hockey tutorial office. Not something I think I'll ever use, but maybe one day I will, I don't know. Let me know if you think I should use them. But that kind of brings us to the end, guys. This is the entire skate collection that I have that I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this. But as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've kept your entire skate collection as well, let me know what you have. What was the first pair of skates you used, if you can remember? What skates are you using now and why? Leave your comments down below so I can check those out. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed checking out what skates I've got and why I've held on to them for so long. As always, guys, a big thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If this was something that you enjoyed, let me know in the comment section down below, because I'd love to create more of these. Maybe we can even look at my entire stick collection, which isn't a massive collection, which might surprise you because I typically don't really break sticks, but I do get a lot of sticks for all of the videos that you do see. I tend to get my sticks in Tommy's curve, which you see in all of our videos, and his flex, and we're both right-handed, which, as you can expect, when he breaks a stick, he often comes to the office and grabs one of mine because I typically don't break sticks. But if you want to see that video, comment down below and we'll make it happen. But big thank you for watching this all the way to the end. Thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys.